Welcome, everyone. This is my first podcast on Chaos Podcast. For our very first guest, we have Cam Iasimone here with me today. He's a senior at URI, majoring in sports media communications, and is also a sports broadcaster for ESPN Plus and the WRIU radio. So, Cam, welcome. How are we doing today?
I appreciate you for having me. Thank you.
You also have a podcast as well, correct? Cam's Corner. Was a podcast always something that you wanted to do, or like how did you get that started yourself?
So I used to go to Rhode Island College in Providence, and my freshman year was during COVID. So I knew I wanted to get into some kind of like sports realm because I always loved basketball. It's where like my passion for everything kind of stemmed from sports, and knew I wasn't going to play at the college level. So I wanted to stay around the game, try to figure out ways where I could still be involved, but not really behind the scenes. So I picked up mass media communications was my major at RIC, and then COVID and everything restrict like on campus activities. So I was trying to figure out a way to like keep my name in the loop with the sports media market in Rhode Island. And I figured, why not start a podcast? I remember like that summer heading into sophomore year when things were starting to open up, my friends were like, "Oh, you should start a podcast." And there's a lot of good people around that I could interview. And I grew up with Dan Mazzulla, who's Joe Mazzulla, the head coach of the Celtics. His dad was my coach and lifelong mentor since I was like in sixth grade, and then up till like my junior year when he got sick. He passed away my senior year, but I reached out to Joe, and he was my first guest on the podcast. So like from there, it kind of just I guess I wouldn't say blew up. I mean, it's pretty well known around, I guess, Johnston in my hometown and stuff like that. But really just wanted to do the podcast to kind of get my name out there for broadcasting. So I guess, it's doing solid right now, and I'm gonna keep doing it until my time runs out. I don't know when I'll stop it, but going good so far.
Yeah, I know you're on the road to 100, right?
Yeah, 100 episodes, almost there. Yep.
So you see yourself going past 100, continuing it, even like as you start your career, because obviously you're a senior now at URI, you graduate soon. So you see yourself doing that podcast, even though you're going to start your career soon as well?
Yeah, I think so. It depends like where I land. My dream goal is to be with like an NBA team, to like be like a radio broadcaster or a TV broadcaster. But obviously right now nothing's set in stone with the job opportunity and the job market and things like that. But I can definitely see it going past 100, and I can definitely see it incorporated in the team that I work with. So say I worked with I'm a diehard Knicks fan. So say I work for the Knicks one day and I'm one of their broadcasters. I could see it kind of intertwining with that, like making it more Knicks based or something like that. But haven't really thought that far ahead, but definitely will go past 100 for sure.
And then you said you started at Rick's College, right?
Rhode Island College, yeah, it's in Providence.
Okay. So that was before URI. What made you, start? What made you transfer to URI, and like why is that like the spot for you right now?
Like I said, freshman year was COVID. There wasn't anything I could do on campus. So it was kind of just like getting those gen ed credits while I'm home. Sophomore year came around and they started opening things up more. And I was like, what can I do to get involved in sports? Like I was reaching out to the past people that I interviewed. I had like a few episodes already out for Cam's Corner. And they're like, "Oh, just get involved with student ran programs, this, that." And I tried to get involved as much as I could. I think the assistant editor for the sports section of the student ran newspaper at RIC. And then from there, I was trying to find like the broadcasting activities and, student groups and things like that. So I just didn't like the way those groups were ran. So I went down to like the official, the website's name is goanchorman.com. So I went down to like the SID, the sports information director down at RIC, Scott Gibbons. And, he got me going on the radio for a public address, and like, it was cool. Like I got a lot of hands-on stuff and I did a lot of sports, but it just wasn't like the best fit. I feel like if I, were at URI, I probably could have had more exposure like in my younger years, like my freshman and sophomore year. But, I always say everything happens for a reason, because that summer I was applying for internships and I got an internship with 98.5, the Sports Hub. So, like I said, everything happens for a reason. So if I didn't stay at RIC, or if I started at URI my freshman year, maybe I wouldn't have got that internship. So, just grateful everything that happened worked out the way it did. But URI was always on my radar my freshman year. I just got waitlisted because of COVID, and two, my SAT scores weren't that great. So I didn't really end up following up, and I stuck with RIC. But that sophomore year, I applied, I got in, got the internship, and then accepted URI's offer. So everything kind of just everything went good after that. So I was excited to start, and I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah, I like that saying everything happens for a reason. I feel like that's the same for me. I'm also a sophomore here as well. This is my first semester here, and I feel like if I stayed at my old previous college, which was Bucknell University, I wouldn't have found my passion in sports media because sports has always been big for me as well. I played college football for a year and a half before I had to stop because I had too many concussions, which was very unfortunate. But again, you said everything happens for a reason, so I transferred here and I'm getting very involved in campus already where I'm trying to start my podcast as well, and I'm finding like things to do. I got a new coaching intern for the URI football team, which is going to be really great for me as well. But yeah, so being able to like find out like your true passion and being able to like make that path for yourself is definitely like very beneficial for you, which is awesome. You said you played basketball in high school, right?
Yep.
Do you have like a favorite uh, like sports memory from your childhood that stuck with you throughout the years at all?
If I think like high school, I mean, there's a ton of them, but so like I said, I played for Dan Missoula, who was Joe's dad. Um, Obviously, people know Joe around in Rhode Island and Boston as the head coach of the Celtics, of course, and being around those, like his family, like it just motivated me every day because their mentality was just different, like the way that they coached and the way that they taught and everything. Like Dan was the director of recreation from where I'm from in Johnston. And he was a hard ass at times, but like he always had like a message to everything that he would say. So um, I'm trying to think like a lot of practices like were like just tough. Sometimes like we didn't have a ball. I can tell the one that I just told on one of my recent episodes. I had a few of my former teammates with me. This was in eighth grade, so I wasn't in high school yet, but in eighth grade in my middle school, we used to play tag like after school because like the school was like empty, there was no one there. So like the whole team, there'd be like 15, 20 of us just playing tag like in an empty middle school. Because the girls team would practice before us and then we'd come in at like 3:30. Um, so we're running around, we're doing our thing, and my friend Jay like bends the corner like downstairs, like thinking that there's no one there. Like we're like running away from the person that was like it. So he bends the corner, and there was a teacher. So like I couldn't really see. I don't know if he knocked the teacher over. He claims he didn't, but it definitely scared her. So like she's at the corner, and she's obviously mad. So she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna tell the principal about this." And the principal was like, "We could like." Well, he was like one of our friends because he was like super cool and but he was also strict like Dan. But that kind of got us like shook for a minute. So we're like walking back up to like the gym, and then we hear over the intercom, "Oh, well, the boys basketball team like report to my office now." We knew who it was, so we're all scared. Like there's like 15 of us. We go to the office. Long story short, he told Dan, and he's like, "Oh, coach is gonna hear about this, blah blah blah." So we go into practice. Me and Jay were captains, so we actually I wasn't a captain. Jay was a captain, and he goes into the room, unlocks like the closet to get like the ball racks. We start shooting around before practice. Dan walks in with the principal, and he's like, "Yeah, we're not touching a basketball for the rest of the week." And this was on like a Tuesday, and oh no, this is on a Monday. We had playoffs on the Friday, so the whole week we had no like basketball like the whole practice. So all we did was like pyramid runs up and down the floor. Um, and then even throughout playoffs, we would still do that because like we would like eat and like have like snacks before school or before practice. And it was in the hallway right in front of the gym. So like we didn't clean that up. We got caught playing tag and it was like a big thing. And yeah, that was like it was like usually hell week is before the season, but that was like our hell week right before playoffs, which kind of sucked. But yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like it's always like you're young, trying to rough around, but like those things like can get to you a little bit. But so playing basketball, high school, all that stuff. Do you have like any sports like mentors or like any role models that kind of influenced you growing up, or like even like you have a hard coach obviously in high school? Was he like a big influence on you as well, or any role models pretty much in sports that have helped you?
Yeah, like outside of my family and like my dad, definitely definitely Dan for sure. I met him my when I was in seventh grade. So I got cut sixth grade. I made the team in seventh grade, and then that year was kind of like a breakout year for me. Like sixth grade, I was still kind of like getting into my body. I was like still kind of had like that baby fat, and then like seventh grade, I kind of like got tall and skinny and developed a jump shot. And he took a liking to that. He took a liking to my work ethic and everything like that. So after that season, I remember like in the spring, he offered me like a job at the rec. I'm like 13 years old, the rec department in Johnston. And like he had me scoring games. I did like maintenance and all this stuff. And he's like looking after like a lot of me and my close friends that were also on the team. Eighth grade comes around, we're a little more mature. We played well. The same thing happens. Like each year, I just felt like I was getting closer and closer to him. And I interviewed God Shamgod Jr. So God Shamgod played at Providence College. His son is like a coach in the G League now, and he was coached by Joe when Joe coached Fairmont. And he said, the Missoula family, like the way that they invest in people, if you can see the way that they invest in you, that should make you want to invest in others. So just the way that the way that he kind of like poured his heart out to me and my teammates, just like about working hard and all that stuff, really motivated me at a young age, and I still have that mentality to this day because of that. And I was very fortunate enough I premiered, edited, and produced a documentary like on his life and legacy in Rhode Island. Premiered it last April at the Johnson Rec Center, where like the building that he built from like the ground up, and that we worked in every single day as kids. We had like 5,000 views on YouTube, I think. Like it was like 400 people there. Like it was an amazing event, and I didn't do it like for myself. Obviously, it's gonna probably help me now down the line as I'm trying to find jobs and stuff, because that's like my selling point. That's like where my passion started. But it was just a great thing for him, because like during COVID when he passed away, like he didn't really get the send off that he deserved. So having that film in honor of him and having so many people show out for it was really cool, and just showed how much of an influence he had on the town. So he was definitely, like I said, and back to your question, like just probably like one of like my biggest influences, like outside of him, is probably like my dad for sure, as far as like sports and staying level headed and always working hard to get to like a certain point or whatever you want to do in your life. So definitely those two people for sure.
That documentary that you did, how long did you do that yourself, and like how long did that take for it to be produced?
Yeah, so he passed away April 22nd of 2020. So this past April was the 3-year anniversary. So I premiered it on that day. I started it, I want to say like maybe like beginning of September. I had the idea. Then I reached out to Joe, and I reached out to his other son Justin, who coaches for the Utah Jazz right now, and the G League team for the Jazz. But I reached out to them, and they thought it was a great idea. So they were like, just keep us in the loop and get the ball rolling with it. So Justin was the first person I talked to, and he was a grad assistant coach at URI before he went to Utah. And we did our first interview in the Ryan Center, and it really kind of painted the picture from there. So this was like I said, like mid-September, I want to say. I went like all around like Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut. Like I interviewed probably like 40 people for it. And then once I got all the interviews, like the editing process was like, all right, each interview is like a half hour to an hour long. I've never made a movie. Like I don't know like what I'm doing from here, but being familiar with like Premiere and all that stuff, being able to edit the podcast and edit all the stuff I do at URI, kind of gave me like I guess like a step up. So I was like, all right, if I can edit this, like I can probably put together something that I can make memorable. And I put together a trailer, and I was like, this trailer is like really good, but where do I go from there? So I posted the trailer, and like it got like thousands and thousands of views. And I'm like, okay, now I have to like do this. I can't like just check it out now that I made this whole trailer. But yeah, 40 people I interviewed. Each interview was like a half hour to an hour long. I had to go through everything. That process took like 9 months to do. Setting up the date to get the rec center to be able to premiere it. Make sure everyone's account. It wasn't like a paid event or anything. People would just obviously just come and stuff. But I had contacted the news, like ABC6. I'm very close with like Ian Steele and Nick Coit, who work there. They're sports anchors there, and they came down. Ian came down and did like a whole thing on it, which was awesome. But yeah, it was a lot like that. This was last year, so that was a really like stressful time, because like that's like all I put my time into alongside like broadcasting, but definitely well worth it for sure.
Yeah, I mean that sounds amazing. I mean, just putting in the time, the effort, driving around all of New England, being able to interview that many people and putting together that movie. I'll definitely take a look at that now that you mentioned it.
Yeah.
And then definitely like moving on more recently. So obviously you're an ESPN broadcaster at URI here for what is it, mostly basketball games, or do you do football as well, or what other
Yeah.
sports?
So junior year, I did more like every sport. This year, I kind of wanted to focus more on basketball just because like that's the job I want to hopefully land soon. And for football, I was like a sideline reporter.
How did that broadcasting opportunity come to you? Was it from past internships, or was it just from reaching out here at URI or connections?
I think it was more so just reaching out. Shane Donaldson, who's the SID for URI, it was him and Meg and Michaela. So those are the three SIDs at URI. And I didn't know about Michaela and Meg yet. I don't think Meg was even there, but I reached out to Shane and Dave Walzer, who's I think he's a professor there too, but he does like a lot of production with ESPN Plus. So I reached out to both of them, and like when I found out I got accepted, this was like I want to say March or April. So I'm still at Rick, but I found out I got accepted to URI, so I'm definitely going to go and try to seek out opportunities. So I'm reaching out to all the connections that I met with doing the podcast, and who to get in contact with. I got in contact with the radio people. I got in contact with Shane and Dave, and I sent them some tapes that I had from Rhode Island College, like public address stuff, like tapes from previous games. And they said, all right, we're going to throw you right into the fire and start with like soccer. And this is in August. So like probably like a few months before that. I'm like, all right, I mean, if I can get my foot in the door and I'm on ESPN Plus, like why not? Like if my main goal is basketball, this is like I said, a step like in the right direction, a foot in the door. So, obviously soccer is not my forte, or even volleyball too, I had to do, but just having my name in the mix and having my name in the conversation for anything was huge. So it's kind of just like working up the ladder from there. Like never saying no, like always saying yes to any opportunity. If you get an opportunity, even if it's not ideal, at the early stages, you have to say yes. So they can see that you're available, you're flexible, you're dependent, all that kind of stuff. So it was really just being consistent with it. Like if I didn't want to do soccer and I only wanted to do basketball, like I wasn't going to get that opportunity because I'm not showing my, availability to other sports. So they saw that I was willing to make changes and willing to just get better every day. And thankfully, like it's led to a lot. Like this year, I got a lot of play-by-play games for basketball. I've done a lot over the radio, and it's good to for like broadcasting. If you ever want to get into broadcasting, it's always like keeping tabs with that stuff, making reels, because that's going to ultimately get you a job. Like the resumes can speak for itself, but if they can physically see what you're doing, that goes a long way. So I was able to make like a portfolio, like a website portfolio, and document all that work, which is huge.
I find it hard to you know commentate like soccer, volleyball games. Not obviously growing up playing it. Or did you have to like kind of learn, what to say? And
Yeah, you definitely learn on the fly. Like the people there too that were like like the students that were more experienced than me, they helped me a lot. Doing my own research and just trying to figure out ways to do things. And broadcasting is you have to be prepared. That's like one of the main things is having like a spot chart in front of you with like the roster, the stats, and you make that on yourself. So, yeah, it was definitely like a work in progress when I first started it because I didn't know anything about the sports really. So, it was more so like trying to maintain and find my voice as a broadcaster, but then at the same time being able to be versatile and be able to do multiple sports to show that I'm that talented to ultimately get my goal with basketball.
yeah, and then now that you are doing that goal of basketball, how often are you like announcing games for ESPN? Because I know like that's definitely like you've worked up all like that high school, that first 3 years of college doing that. So how often are you now announcing like games on ESPN now?
Yeah, so I actually last week, I want to say, or a week and a half ago, I called my last ever broadcast on ESPN, um, which was like bittersweet because now my last ever radio broadcast will be at the A10 tournament in Brooklyn in 2 weeks, which is going to be really cool. Um, first ever time in an NBA, like working in an NBA arena. So that's going to be like my first, like a first experience for me. But usually like this year, I think because with like seniority and the experience that I had before, like we were talking about, it was more so probably like every other home game I would do. Because there's a lot of students that are in that program that were there before me, of course, and their names in the mix as well. So they would get some games, I would get some games, but I think it was my seniority and again the experience that I had built up before, which landed me to those spots. So it was like every other home game. I wouldn't do away games, but I was always trying to. If I wasn't on TV, I wanted to do radio. So I was always trying to get to any home game I could.
Yeah. And then now that, senior graduating in March almost now, so 2 months, have you like found, a place to continue your broadcasting in, or is that something you're still, looking for right now?
Definitely still looking for it. Right now I'm still like in some interview processes and just getting my application out there as fast as possible into as many organizations as possible. I've seen some openings, so I've been definitely throwing my name in there. And usually the broadcasting jobs for like basketball open up, from what I heard, open up in like March and April. Because the tail end of the NBA is almost done. The WNBA is in the off season, so it's more so being active in March and April. And if the time comes and it has to go that way, I'll try to find something post grad, like in the summer. But yeah, every day just trying to stay as active as possible in the job market, trying to see like what's available and what's best applicable for me too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's it for me today. Cam, I really appreciate you taking the time, to come on today. When I first got here to URI, and I seen your stuff on like Instagram and all that stuff, kind of inspired me to, it helped inspire me to, form a podcast, try to reach out to people that I remember in my high school days as well, and continue to try to talk to them. But yeah, so this is my very first episode 1. And hopefully I'm just getting started with this, and I'm going to try to do these like weekly and things like that. You have anything else to say for your final thoughts?
Any help that you need, going forward, please reach out. I'm always willing to help, and I appreciate you for asking me to be your first guest. It's pretty cool. I've done a few like interviews, like nothing crazy, but I've never been the first guest on a podcast, so that's pretty cool. I appreciate that. Thank you.
For sure. And then I'll put your link to Cam's Corner for sure down below. And I hope you have a great last couple of weeks here at URI as well.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, man. Thank you.